All right.
And here is Dane, all the way
Hello,
from
everybody.
Texas. How are
Yeah.
you?
Welcome to Texas. As you can see in the background over here, this is Texas. This white wall,
Yeah.
beautiful, painted by Texans. I'm actually in El Paso, so I'm right on the border of Mexico. So it's kind of like
Oh,
Mexico and
nice.
Texas.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
I'm sure a lot of my listeners are because they are actually from the States. I'm sure a lot of them will know where you are, even though,
Yeah, they'll know what Texas is.
yeah, exactly.
You
Even
don't know
though
what Texas is.
I've seen it on the map, I've seen it in movies, but yeah, I haven't been there yet.
It's not, a lot of people who haven't been to Texas, because I didn't live in Texas at first.
Okay.
Everyone thinks it's like people on horses and cowboys and
Yeah,
stuff. But
yeah.
it's just like everywhere else.
Oh, okay.
It's
Boring.
normal. There's cowboys and horses, but not in El Paso.
But Dane, honestly, it's so good to have you on. Thank you so much. And I've been meaning to obviously schedule this in, but life takes over, and
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay.
and you've got a hell of a story to tell,
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
you? And
yeah.
yeah, it'd be
Well,
great.
one of the things I wanted to start out with is why I'm telling my story.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to like just to say, and I just feel like I had this dream, like this vision, kind of when I first went to prison, and I really wanted to help other people, and that's the
Okay.
thing that really encouraged me to do better was to like I call myself, it's from the Bible, but I call myself like the chief of sinners, and that keeps me really humble because one of the thing that I did, and I'll share it with you later. I'm not like I'm not about sharing it, but it was pretty terrible, and I feel like if I could get out of that, then anybody can get out of anywhere where they're at, and that's why I'm saying like I'm the worst person, and I was the worst person, and now I'm at a point in my life where I'm full of life and meaning, and life is just amazing. But at one point, it wasn't amazing, and it was terrible, and it was dark, and I was alone, and
Yeah.
um, I hope that anybody hearing this, they can hear me reaching out a hand to you, and I hope that I can help you pick yourself up. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I can just sense the sincerity right there, and the fact that you've come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to
Yeah.
try to be as authentic as possible. That's my big thing. Try to be authentic, try to share whatever, anything you want to ask me, you can ask me. Like, you guys know Eminem over there?
Oh, yeah. I love
You
him.
know,
Love Eminem. Yeah.
I like the Eminem principle. At the end of 8 Mile, he says all these things about himself. And then the other guy, he couldn't say anything about him. And so when you share everything about yourself, like,
Yes.
nobody can say anything about me because I already told them
Yeah.
everything.
Oh my God. And you know what? I live by that. That
Yeah,
was one of the
exactly.
most important messages any of us could ever learn, I think, when it comes to movies.
Oh,
Because you're
yeah.
right. Yeah. Because like if you're out there sharing your story, the most glorious details about yourself, then you're right. What is it that anyone else can say to put you down or to judge you? Because we live in such a judgmental society where
Absolutely.
everybody just they love putting others down.
I think that we think we live in more of a judgmental society than it actually is. Like we just
Mm,
think that everyone's going to judge us and point at us and look at us. But I find that most of the time, most people they want to help you. Most people want the best for you. And pretty much everyone I share my story with, they're like, they don't look. I used to think, like I'm a prisoner and people are going to look down on me, look down on me, look down on me. And really, people are like, man, it's crazy that you got out of that. It's crazy that you're
wow.
doing good. Um, there's this book. It's called. It's by Victor Hugo. You know Victor Hugo?
Oh, I love him.
What's his?
Yes.
Oh, Les Miserables. I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but Les Miserables, right?
Okay.
How you
Yeah.
say it?
Is it Les Miserables?
It's like Les Miserables, but
Oh,
basically the guy he goes to prison and he comes out and he tries to do better. And this cop, he's chasing
yeah.
him his whole life. This cop keeps finding him after he rebuilds his life, and he keeps tearing him down. And the guy, he's just trying to start his life. He's trying to do good, and the cop keeps taking him down. And I used to think that like, everyone's gonna be chasing after me. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, you were in prison, you're nobody, you're nothing. And
Yeah.
that's not the case. But if I keep that mentality and I look at it that way, like the cognitive dissonance, if I look at like, everyone's judging me, I'm gonna think everyone's judging me. But really,
That's
like
so true. Yeah.
some people are, obviously, some people are gonna look at you
Mm,
bad, some people are, but you don't want those people in your life, you
no,
know?
you don't. Yeah.
Um, I don't.
That's a big learning curve, and you're right. And I think the way that you perceive the world, perception is everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it is the way that you perceive the world. And I have come from a very, very high judgmental culture, um,
Okay.
Indian heritage. So any Indians who will probably listen to
Well,
this
they
know what
expect
I'm
a
going
lot
on
out of
about.
you.
Yeah.
You're like, you better be a doctor.
Exactly right. So
Yeah.
just imagine me publishing my book about my sexual abuse, graphic details in my book, and about, you know, the failed relationships that I had, the numerous relationships that I had. Imagine how shaming that could have been.
Yeah.
If it, you know, if I didn't have the supportive family that I did have.
Do they look at you like that now? Like, are they judgmental or?
Well, again, I think because my whole mindset's changed, it's shifted, and now all I see is abundance, and I'm attracting those supportive people into my life. I don't even actually feel the judgment anymore.
That's cool. That's amazing. Yeah. Sometimes even you gotta like, I found you gotta separate yourself from family. Like, just because they're family doesn't mean that they're gonna be in your life forever. Like, maybe you'll see them at like a barbecue or whatever and be like, hello.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
I know.
Now I'm gonna believe in social distancing.
That's another topic for another episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us about your childhood then. Tell us about your family.
Okay. Yeah, I almost went into interview mode and started interviewing you.
I know. I thought that was like,
sorry. This is victim to victor. All right. All right. So I just got a couple of notes here. I'll look at them here and there, but just to keep myself on track. But you know, I kind of look back at my childhood, and a way to look at, for a long time, I would look at my parents and be like, man, it's all their fault that I'm here. It's all their fault that I did this. It's all their fault that I did that. And you know, they were just children. They were just kids when they had me. They were 18 to 22, and so now I've forgiven them and I've gotten over things. But when I first got locked up, I would always look at him and be like, my mom sucked, my dad sucked. You know, my mother, she was severely mentally ill, and she was on a bunch of medication. And I remember watching her when she was suicidal and she got put into a mental hospital. And for a kid, that's really, really confusing stuff. And my father, he was drunk all the time, and he was kind of a rough, masculine dude. And when I was a child, it was really confusing to be around that all the time. Like, especially with your mother, like being an alcoholic, unfortunately, is a lot more socially accepted. But my mother, she was just laying around a lot. She was sad and she was depressed. And like I said in the beginning of talking about it, is like, now that I look back on it, she doesn't have the resources that we have. We got YouTube and we got things we can look up. We got books, we got doctors, we got all this stuff. And back in the 90s and early 2000s, that was more taboo than it is now. And so like, she was abused in different ways, and she never knew how to deal with that. And so one thing that I've learned from them is like, dude, it's really important to deal with your problems, you know? And so with that kind of childhood, I learned to be an alcoholic. I learned to drink. I learned to cope different ways. I learned to not talk about stuff because I never saw my parents talk about things. I see them yell about things. I think one of the biggest problems I had, like relationally, was that like I didn't know how to treat women because I never seen my father at a young age. Because that's when you're like, when you're little, you're looking all the time, and you're like, you're watching and analyzing stuff all the time. And for a young boy, like you're always looking at daddy. You're like, Dad, what's dad doing? Dad's Superman. Dad's the guy. And he's either yelling at my mother or ignoring her. I never remember them like holding hands or loving each other. And like, I guess, you know, I didn't realize how, like, I didn't know how to treat women for a long time. Never did anything like terrible or whatnot. But I guess probably I became verbally abusive, and it was really easy for me to disconnect from women. It was really easy for me to just like not look at them like they were something special, because I never learned that, you know?
Learned behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything that they did molded me into who I was. So they ended up having a rough divorce when I was young. One of my best friends when I was little was my brother. And in the rough divorce, my brother went with my mother and I went with my father. And so that was really hard to not have my best friend to talk to try to, like, you know, me and my brother were always just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, we were just trying to play and we're trying to like ignore stuff. But at the same time, we're like, man, what is this? But at the same time, when like you went through what you went through, you thought that was normal. You think that's normal. Like,
absolutely.
We just think this is how everybody is.
It's
when I got older, I started going to like friends' houses and stuff, and their parents were like hugging each other and they're nice. I was like, what's wrong with them? You know?
Books.
Nerds. You know, I had this girlfriend one time. She literally told me, because we got in a fight when I was like 18 or whatever, and she literally told me, she said, my parents have never ever gotten in an argument ever. I've never seen them even disagree. And I was like, you're tripping. Like, I think that's maybe you might have see some arguing. You know?
Wow, absolutely. That means there's no fire.
Yeah, like I think honestly, now that I'm older, like there need, like in a relationship, there needs to be like a healthy amount of arguing. Like you
Mm.
don't want just somebody who agrees with everything you say. That's boring.
Walk over. Yeah, exactly.
So, women don't want just an agreeable man, and men don't just want an agreeable man or woman. We want like,
Yeah,
somebody,
passion's good, right?
passion, someone to compliment us, someone to challenge us. But
Yeah.
I guess I'll get into, after I joined the Army when I was 19 years old. Um, from 15 to about 25, I did nothing but drink and use drugs. The
Wow.
Army was essentially, there were some good things about it. I'll share the good things first. I went to Iraq when I was 19 years old in 2009. And luckily for me, like I already had so many problems. Like I'm glad I wasn't into a terrible war zone area. I was in the infantry. It was a war zone, but I got really blessed that I didn't go through anything crazy, because
Yeah.
one of the things people always ask about soldiers are always like, hey man, did you kill anybody? Did you,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, chill out with that, man. I've
Yeah.
seen people who've killed people and they got a lot of problems, like
Yeah.
it's not,
PTSD?
PTSD is not a fun thing. It's not something that should be glorified.
No.
I don't think that, I don't really know like psychologically about that much, but I know, I've seen so many people who are messed up that
Yeah.
it's not a good place to be. But the good thing about it was I went to Iraq, and the place I went, it was so destitute. And it was so like there was trash everywhere. It was a crazy place to see, because I'm from America, and in America we have all this stuff. We got gyms, we got churches, we got libraries, we got all
Mm.
these things. These people didn't even have a trash system. There's trash all over the floor. The
Yeah.
women, they're not even allowed to show their faces. They're like in burqas, and like they're not allowed to leave the house
Mm.
without a man. They're not allowed to, like, it's a crazy, crazy world. The men, like they're basically getting tyrannized by gangsters, like blowing up and shooting people, and like that's a terrible life to have. So the good thing I saw was like it made me be really thankful for what I had. It made me
Yeah.
be really like, I'm like, dude, I'm in a great country. Like life is good. Like
Yeah.
I come back and everyone's complaining that they had to wait 5 minutes in line for McDonald's, and I'm like,
Oh,
you know,
like really?
that's crazy. Like, but at the same time, when the problem that we have sometimes is when we learn things, we start getting kind of judgmental. Like if you
Yeah.
get like in really good shape, you might look down on somebody fat, and you're like, what are you doing? Get off the couch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
But
true.
it take like you got to look at it from like, they don't have that perspective. They didn't learn that. They didn't go through that.
Yeah.
And so the bad things about the Army was like there's a bunch of young kids, and a lot of my friends went to Afghanistan and they experienced some really terrible things. And there's a lot of alcoholism. We're all trying to just sleep with as many women as possible. We're all just
Mm.
like, we don't care about other people. And it was just like being in a frat party. Me
Yeah.
myself, I got more and more consumed in alcohol. I started like abusing drugs. Um,
Mm.
I joined the Army because I really wanted my father to be proud of me, and he was to a certain degree, but he kind of looked down on me back then, and I learned later why. But I was like, I thought that just joining the Army would merit me as a man, but really, I was still being a child. I was still doing childish things, and like I said, I really got into alcohol a lot. I became really, really suicidal because probably watching my mother be suicidal, I didn't really have meaning and purpose, and I really thought the Army would give me purpose. It
Yeah.
gave me a job. It taught me leadership. It did these
Yeah.
other things, but I really didn't deal with a lot, because one of the stigmas in a community of men is like, if you get help, you're a wuss. If you get help, you're weak, and nobody actually said that, but it was definitely implicit. Nobody explicitly said that because they would get in trouble. Like if you say that, but basically they're like, oh, he went to mental health, about that guy, um, the Army eventually, I ended up being one of the craziest guys there, but I never got in trouble because um, I pretty much got enabled, because if you can run well and you can shoot and you show up on time, you can pretty much get away with anything. Like that's crazy. Like I was in good shape and I could shoot, and so they're like, Dane, we heard about what you did this weekend. We heard you're doing some crazy stuff, but
Wow. Okay.
we're gonna let you make it. And I always think about that. Like if I'm ever in charge of somebody, I'm gonna have to lay down the law so that I don't enable them to continue. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. And how many years were you in the army?
I was in the Army almost 6.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that was from what age?
from 19 to 25.
25. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I just continued in this crazy lifestyle of drinking all the time. I really think me and my friends, we got addicted to adrenaline. Like we started doing some crazy stuff. Like almost every single night, one of my friends would pull out a gun and we would point it at people, and we get in like almost like gun fights with people. Like I had this one friend, every night he'd pull out his gun, he'd be like, F the world, and he'd be shooting in the air. And like, it was just,
Whoa.
that was normal to us though. We're like, oh, there he is again with his gun.
So
Ha ha ha.
dangerous, right? And are these fully loaded guns?
Yeah, fully loaded.
Oh, goodness.
Pretty
Okay.
much every night somebody tried to kill themselves. Somebody would try to do this. We would break into someone's house, or we were
Wow.
insane. And when people look at the army, they're always like, oh, those guys, are probably good dudes and they live a good life,
Yeah. Saving the country.
saving the country. But we're probably the
Yeah.
most got into the most
Craziest.
debauchery, craziest
Yeah.
debauchery. But it's because a lot of people, man, they don't deal with that stuff from going to
Yeah.
war. Or they don't deal with the stuff from their past life. And the only way that we know how to deal with it is to do crazy things and take advantage of
Mm.
people, I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
I know
Yeah.
that sounds pretty terrible, but it's the truth. So eventually, though, the army was like, they made me go to mental health, and this was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me,
Okay.
was getting made to go to mental health. I went to mental health. I was already drinking,
Mm.
and they started. I told them what was going on with me. I told them, I drink all the time. I do this, that, and the other. I was trying to be honest. Well, they prescribed me with psychiatric medication, like
Okay.
antipsychotics and stuff. And I don't know what you think about it. I'm personally pretty against. What I really needed was some counseling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really needed to
Therapy.
talk
Yeah.
about things. I don't think that.
Not
I think that
drugs.
some people probably need that kind of stuff, and I'm not looking down on anybody who
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
But
Chronic cases. Yeah.
they're so. That's like they don't. It seemed like they didn't want to talk to me, and they just wanted to give me pills. Like
Yeah.
it was crazy, and I'm already
Yeah.
an addict, and so I started taking these pills, and I mixed the pills with
Oh.
alcohol, and that made me feel better, right? Well,
Yeah. That
eventually,
feeling.
yeah, the pills, they lose the effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
And so eventually I wanted more. So I would
Mm.
tell the doctor, these aren't working. And
Oh, up
and
the
I started,
dose.
huh?
They obviously up the dose.
Yeah, they started upping the dose. They started giving me more medication. It got to a point with the medication and alcohol that I literally started hallucinating. Like I would start seeing things just in the middle of the day, like
Mm.
these like dark demonic like spirits and just weird stuff. And I'm like, I'm trying to keep this to myself. I'm trying to like hold together, but like I started to come undone like in a way that I'd never had before. And like I just started having these crazy thoughts. And one night, to get to the what got me in prison, one night I was drinking with my friends. I was using the prescription medications. I was on about 17 different medications that night. And I was using cocaine as well. So that's a hell of a cocktail right there. And I, I I passed out on the table. I woke up and I just got this crazy feeling like I need to go do something. I need to go destroy something. I got to go do something bad. Like I don't know what it was. It was insane. And so I got up. I started running in my friend's backyard. I jumped over the fence. I broke into this house. I broke into this other house. I broke into this other house. I broke into like 10 houses. And eventually I broke into this church. And I punched through the window. I was so drunk and so high and
Wow.
so on everything. I punched through the window barefisted. I got blood all over my arm. I start bleeding. I'm bleeding all over the floor of this church. And I start looking for money. And I'm like really,
Wow.
the only word for it, American word, is tweaking. I'm like tweaking, like I'm like scratching myself and I'm coming down. And I start getting
Wow.
really paranoid. And I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I start feeling bad. I'm like, man, what did I do? What am I doing? Why am I in this church? I look over and there's
Yeah.
blood all over the floor. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get caught. Like, there's no way.
Oh
There's
man.
cameras and whatnot. And I had this crazy idea. I was like, all right, the only way to get out of this situation, I had like maybe 8 months left on my 6-year contract in the army. I was like, the only way to get out of this situation is if I burn this church down right now. Like
Goodness.
that was my level of just like psychotic thoughts. Like I need to burn it
Yeah.
to the ground. It'll get me out of this situation. Like it was that dumb.
Oh my goodness. So basically you were coming down off your drugs, weren't you, right now?
Yeah, I'm coming down off the
Coming
drugs, and
down. Yeah.
I start getting real paranoid. you know,
Wow.
yeah.
This is so surreal.
And so what did I do? I burned it down. I burned it to the ground.
A
Um,
church.
yeah, a church. That's why I said I'm the in the very beginning, I'm the chief of sinners.
I was gonna say, like, it's like the Satan, right?
Yeah. It was
Wow.
terrible. And
Yeah.
you know, looking back, I remember my feelings back then. I was really bitter. I was really angry. I was really resentful, and
Mm.
I was really mad at God. And I just had a lot of bad experiences in the church when I was younger. Just a lot of judgmental. They tried to exorcise me one time, like take demons out of me, just because I had
Ew.
some
Okay.
some problems as a child. Like it was completely inappropriate and it was terrible. And it kind of traumatized me a little bit.
Okay.
But I didn't go out like thinking like I'm gonna go burn a church down, but it just kind of it led into that, and it's completely crazy and completely dumb, but that's what I did. And so I set it on fire, I run off, I leave, I go to a friend's house. They see me, I'm covered in smoke and bleeding, and they're like, dude, what'd you do? I was like, nothing, man, it's time to go to bed. You know what I mean? They're like, dude, this dude is crazy. He did something, you know. I After that, I checked into a mental hospital because I was like, dude, like it scared me so bad what I did. And I honestly knew I was in a lot of trouble. I was like, man, if I get caught for this, I don't even know what kind of what they're gonna do to me. They're gonna lock me up forever, right? They're gonna put me in prison forever. And so I go to a mental hospital, and I didn't tell them why. I just said, hey, I really, really need to be here. You know, like I scared myself so bad, and I ended up opening up and telling my friends what happened. Well, I started getting investigated by the ATF. That's the alcohol, tobacco, and fire. And they started investigating me. They started investigating my friends. They essentially scared my friends, and my friends turned me into the ATF. I get put in jail, and jail was just an insane. It was just like everything was surreal. It's like looking outside. Like, is this real? Like when I was in the back of the cop car, I'm sitting there and I got my hands behind my back, and I'm like, where am I right now? Where's my life going? Like one second I was in the army, I was a sergeant, I was doing good, like on paper, and the next I'm in the back of a cop car, and my whole life is twisted upside down. And I was so in denial. There's a crazy thing you can do as a human. Like I convinced myself that I didn't even do it. Like I don't know. Like, have you ever been there where you could convince yourself that you didn't do something?
Yeah, so many times. Yeah.
You actually believe it, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my god. I remember this one time I actually spilled some beer over one of my friend's faces, and she was crying, and then saying, oh, you know, you spilled beer on my face. I was like, that wasn't me. It wasn't me. You know, and it's like, and you just kind of fool yourself into believing your own lie. It's crazy, right?
You actually will, and that's insane. Like, so I was in jail for about 8 months, and jail's different than prison, and I'll get into that a little bit. But I was in jail for about 8 months, and by the end of the 8 months, I literally believed that I did not do it. Like, just like,
wow,
it wasn't me. You know,
it wasn't me. Too much M&M there, love.
Yeah, too much. right.
But that wasn't M&M. Who was that? It wasn't me. When I saw you in the corner.
Oh, that was R. Kelly or something.
Oh, I'm glad you. We'll look it up after. It's fine.
Yeah, let's not get into that guy right now.
Yeah. But wow. So this is quite interesting, because now I'm thinking that, because obviously there's so many criminals out there who are in denial about their offense, and maybe they're going through the same processes as you did.
Well, everybody there didn't do it. So, you know, everybody, I'm in jail with like thousands of dudes, and nobody did anything. You know?
Oh, okay then. Right.
That's the culture. You know?
The culture is in denial, right?
Because you're going to court, right? And so if you convince yourself you didn't, maybe you can convince the judge or the jury that you didn't do it too.
Serious. You know? Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It was a crazy time. And I'm here. I was in jail in El Paso over here. In El Paso, the population is so jail is really racist. Prison is really racist. Yeah. So if I say anything that sounds like blunt, like don't take it the wrong way, anybody listening, it's just like, so jail was like all Mexican people, right? Okay. And I'm like, there's like 5 white dudes in the jail. Right. And so all the Mexicans, they stay together, races stay together.
Yeah, click.
And there's blacks, and the blacks stay together. There's more blacks than there was whites, and there were more Mexicans than anybody. So
you were outnumbered.
Huh?
You were outnumbered.
Yeah. As a white guy, it was like I had no friends. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Yeah. Everybody was always wanting to fight me. Like it was a really, really crazy time.
Goodness.
Like,
okay.
Like, oh, you know, the white guys sit over there, like really segregated. Like you can't sit here. This is where the Mexicans sit. And if like, it doesn't matter how tough you are. When you're on your own, like there's 20 of them. There's one of me. You know? And so it was a really lonely, crazy time. And I've never experienced anything like that. And I was on all that medication, so I was really, really messed up. Like I was on, like I had a counselor in the prison one time look at all the medication that I was on, and she was like, you were on all of this? Who let you take this much stuff? Like, she was amazed.
Serious.
Like, she's looking at the screen, looking at me like, are you okay? You
Goodness,
know?
yeah. Well, it's your liver and your kidneys, right?
Yeah,
The
your
whole
liver, your kidneys, your brain, like this stuff. There's people that were on the amount of medication I was at, and they're like drooling for life. Like, they're not coming, like they're just they're stuck. And I was so close to that. Um, like I said, I was hallucinating, literally like seeing things,
yeah,
hearing things, like,
that's
and this didn't
awful.
start until I took the medication. I
Mm,
obviously abused it. I obviously took it to the next level because I lied and
yeah,
learned more. But it's very irresponsible that somebody, like the lady was like, what? You know, like,
yeah,
why would anybody give you this much stuff? And so here I am, I'm in jail. And what they do in jail is this is where they sentence you and they charge you. And so I went to the court for the first time, and they're like, what they try to do is they want you to plea out, because if
mm,
you have to go to a jury trial, that costs a lot of money. They got to pay all the
yeah,
people who go there. They got to pay the DA. They got to pay the judge, all this stuff. And so what they
mm,
do is they want you to plea out. They're like, here, we're going to give you this much time, and if you sign it, you can go to prison, and you never, and you just do that much time, and you can leave. And so what they
mm,
offered me, they said, all right, here's our first offer. We're going to offer you 20 years. Do you want to go to jail to prison for 20 years? I
oh
was like,
wow,
no, I'm not signing that. I didn't do it. And so I was talking to the guys around there, the ones who would talk to me, and I was like, all right, so what's the situation? They're like, all right, first they're going to offer you a lot, then they're going to offer you little. They're going to offer you a lot, and they're going to offer you little. When you get a little, you should probably take it. you know.
right, okay.
And so I went 8 times. They never went down. They said 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, 20
Goodness,
years. And so with the drugs, the existential crisis I'm going through, and then 20
yeah,
years, like I'm really having a bad
man.
time, right?
That is the ultimate, like, kind of sitting on the fence thinking, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah, and I'm
Man.
25 years old at the time, and so when I get out, I'll be 45.
Oh,
And
yeah.
spoiler alert, I'm 31 and I'm not in prison. So
Right. Okay. Oh, dead.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. So what happened? I mean, as okay, so first of all, prison must have made you strong, right?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that was insane. But they finally something. I had this really crazy spiritual experience, and I'll share with you before the sentencing finished. I remember one day I was on the ground, and I'm just mentally to the point of just mental exhaustion. I didn't want to live. I'm looking at 20 years of my future to be in prison. I don't know what prison's
Yeah.
like. I'm lonely as hell right now. I have family. They're answering the phone, but the phone's super expensive. They overcharge your family so much money just to be able to talk to them.
Yeah.
Um, I started seeing a little bit of light in my life. I wanted to read. I wanted to learn, because that's all you can do with your time. And I was laying on the ground one night, and just on the cold, naked prison floor, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like crying, and I'm like, man, what did I do to my life? Where am I going to go? And I heard this voice, and it wasn't like the imaginary voices from the drugs. I know it sounds crazy, and people will be like, well, yeah, you were hallucinating. That's why you heard the voice.
Mm,
I really don't believe that with this voice. And I heard this voice, and it says, Dane, stop right now. You're better than this. You're better than this. You
yeah.
can get out of this. And like, just remembering that, like, that was God. Like, God was there for me,
Yeah.
and he told me to stop, and he told me he loved me, and he told me that I was going to get better.
Mm,
And what I took from that message was, I completely stopped taking all the pills.
mm,
Like, which I wouldn't advise for anybody who's on that much pills.
yeah.
I had to come down. What is that called when you're coming down?
Cold turkey, you had to go, and
Yeah,
I
I went
guess,
cold. I went cold
yeah,
turkey, and that was a terrible, terrible time, because my body's used to having all these chemicals in it,
yeah.
and now it's not. And so I'm like, it was a rough 2 weeks, but I came down. I started reading the Bible. I started getting a little spiritual. I read an amazing, amazing book called "Man's Search for Meaning" by Viktor Frankl. I don't
That's
know.
the one. Yeah, yeah.
You heard of
That,
that one?
yeah, that's the one in which I thought before you were talking about. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that is a beautiful book. Yeah.
that's an amazing book.
Yeah.
Anybody who hasn't read it, it's like 90 pages. Take the
Oh,
time to read it.
yeah.
Um, this man, he went to prison. He went to an Auschwitz prison for something he didn't do, and he didn't blame anybody else. He found meaning, and he helped other people in that situation.
Mm.
And it really helped me from being a racist after reading that book, because, like I told you, like, there was segregation. And so I'm reading
Yeah.
this story about this man who was hated because he was Jewish, and he found meaning where he was at. And in prison, the gangs or the Nazis or the Peckerwoods or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing. So that book was a huge blessing in my life. And it really made me like, if I had done what I did to be where I was at, and this guy had not done anything, and he can like find meaning, and he can't look at anyone and blame them, then of course I can, if I'm actually deserve to be here, you know? And so an amazing thing happened after that little awakening. They finally said, I went to court and they're like, all right, we're tired of seeing you here. We'll give you 10 years. And my attorney, she was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. The next time they're going to go lower. And there's just something inside me that was like, no, I got to get out of here. Because I'm going crazy. In jail, like, you don't get to move around. You don't get to go anywhere. You're just in a cell. And there's not much to do. In prison, they actually, you can go to rec. You can go to school. You can do these other things within the prison. But in jail, you're just like, I'm there for 8 months doing nothing. Like just stuck in a cell. And I was like, nope. I'm going to sign for my time right now. And my attorney, she was like, no, just wait. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do it. And so she's like, all right, whatever. And so I signed for my time. From pretty much everybody I talked to, they're like, you did the right thing, because a lot of people, they'll go low. And then the next time they're going to go 25, 30, 40, like they're going to offer you something crazy after that. And so I signed for the 10 years. At that time, I didn't know anything about parole. I didn't know anything about, because parole means basically you get out early if you're well behaved or whatever. I just assumed, all right, I'm gonna get out when I'm 35, not 45.
Yeah. Oh, so, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got 10 years in front of me. I go to what's called a transfer facility. You go to a transfer facility for 2 years before you go to prison. Transfer facility was super strict. Like you'll get what they call as cases. They like treat you like you're in the army, and I was already in the army, so it wasn't that bad. But like they'll make you make your bed perfect every day. You gotta like, everything's got to be perfect, and they're just super strict. And what they're doing is basically, while you're there, they're trying to teach you how to do prison time. And if you get in trouble while you're there, they'll send you to the worst prison. If you're all right there, they'll send you to a different prison or whatever,
Yeah.
And so they're basically trying to figure out where they're going to put you. It's like an evaluation almost.
That sounds.
And so I'm there. Like I told you, I had an awakening with God, and I started getting really close with my father, and I started talking to my father about things. Like I was like, I even confronted him about some things. I was like, Dad, why were you the way you were, and my dad, like he started to be like really, really proud of me, like he never was before. Like I said earlier, when I was in the army, he was proud of me. But he still like didn't look at me like I was a man. Well, one day he wrote me a letter, and he never wrote a letter. It was like a little tiny baby letter, but he wrote me a letter, and I still have it. And he was just kind of telling me what was going on. He was in between jobs, and he said, "Man, Dane, I'm really proud of you." And he just told me he was proud of me, and that meant a lot to me, And
so, what was that the first time that he said that?
It was the first time I knew that he meant it. Like I really, really felt it. And one of the things, like when a boy becomes a man, like that's the thing your father needs to tell you, is they're proud of you. And so it was a really big moment for me, right? And so me and my dad were talking every single day, and it was awesome. It was awesome to have my dad as my best friend,
That's beautiful. Yeah. So finally, because you mentioned about your childhood, and affection wasn't really a normal approach in your family. I guess it was quite cold and tough loving, would you say?
Yeah. It was just like, you're a man, you don't cry, you don't do that. Now, honestly, like I think it takes more courage to let yourself cry and to share that, and to like that's in the beginning of Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl, he says, do not be afraid of your tears, because tears basically let these men stand up tall in the face of the crematorium. Like they're crying, but they're standing up tall with the Lord's name on their lips, and they're not afraid because they know that everything's gonna be okay. And obviously I wasn't going to the crematorium, so but that book's so extreme that it'll just make you look at life differently. But it was amazing. It was an amazing time. And I was getting closer with my brother too. My brother, he's sending me all sorts of books. He's actually a therapist, and he was working on his degree to be a therapist back then.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah, because he had a lot of issues dealing with my father and my mother, and he wanted to help people with issues. And what me going to prison really affected him pretty negatively. Like he was super sad about that. But so things start really looking good, and I start helping people out there, and people are looking at me like kind of like a leader, and I never experienced that before. Well, I experienced them looking at me as a leader, but a leader to do bad things. I've never experienced people like they're asking me for advice. They're like, "Hey, how do I deal with this?" And so things are going good, and it just another crazy thing happened in my life. And this is why I get emotional about it. Like I was, like I said, I was talking to my dad every single day, and one day I get called to the lieutenant's office. I'm never in trouble. I'm always doing the good thing. I'm helping people out. I'm standing outside the lieutenant's office. That means like you're in trouble, and they're about to read you what you did wrong, and you're about to get charged with something. And I'm like, man, someone's walking by. They're like, dude, Dane, what'd you do? You don't ever do anything. You know, like they would make fun of me how good I was. You know, they're like, you're a do-gooder. You know, I get called in the office, and the lady looks at me, and I don't know how you would tell somebody this, but she says, Dane, she said, your father, he died last night.
Oh, mate. Dane, I'm really sorry to hear that.
He was 49, he's 49 years old, right?
49.
I didn't expect, you know,
That's so young. And what was it?
He got in a motorcycle accident, and he was she said, your brother's on the phone. Do you want to talk to him? I was like, what? You know, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't believe it. And I remember the conversation like it happened right now. He's just like, my brother's crying, and he's like, Dane, the old man's dead, and I'm gonna take care of it. I'm here for you, all this stuff. And I don't believe. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just talked to him. You know, whenever you lose someone, like, we don't believe it. We don't understand that person can just be gone. And so the lady, she was usually she was usually a pretty mean lady, but I got the phone, and she's usually like yelling at everybody and all this stuff. But she was like, Dane, I'm gonna put you in a cell by yourself so you can deal with this, because I was in a population with all these people. But at that time, I was actually in a dorm full of like Christian dudes, and we were trying to like do better with our lives, right? And so I said, well, can I grab something real quick? And she's like, yeah. And I grabbed my journal where I said, save this for a rainy day. Your dad's proud of you. Well, I went in, and everyone's looking at me like, what's wrong with this dude? Like I got tears and all this stuff. And this lady's like, hey, listen up, everybody. This young man, he just lost his father. You guys all say you're Christians. Come around and pray for him right now. And so all these dudes prayed for me, and it was so surreal. Like all these murderers and gangbangers and people with tattoos on their face.
Wow.
They're showing me love, and they're praying for me. Wow. And it was insane. Like I felt like I didn't deserve it. You know,
special.
Yeah, it was like, you don't expect people like that to be like that. You expect them to be like, who cares?
Exactly, right. Wow.
Yeah. So I went to this cell by myself, and I'm just laying on the ground, and I'm crying, and I'm like, I want to give up. I'm like, what's the point anymore? You know? And I'm having all these thoughts run through my head. And I had another like surreal religious experience, and this time it wasn't on any drugs. So it definitely happened. You know, I'm laying on the ground, and I get this vision in my head, and it's of these two lives that I could live following this moment. And this one life, I'm going to live, and I'm going to blame everything on losing my father. And I'm going to just not take responsibility. I'm not going to be a man. And I'm just going to be like, well, my dad died, so who cares? Life's over, you know? And on this other road, I'm going to suffer, but I'm going to suffer the right way. I'm going to grieve. I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to move forward. And I looked at my journal, and I was like, I'm laying on the ground, and I'm like, my dad's proud of me. My dad's proud of me. My dad's proud of me, you know? And that's when I realized why. Like, I was like, you know, I was in the Army. I had all this stuff that he should have been proud of. Why were you proud of me? And I just felt like it's because it's not because of where you are. It's because he sees where you're going. My dad finally saw that I was going somewhere. And that was an amazing feeling. And I'm still laying on the ground, and I just get this, I like see myself in the future, like this older, grayer haired, mature person. And I was very far from that back then. And then I feel like this arm on my back, and I get picked up like this, like a little kitten on the scruff of their neck. I get picked up, and I'm like getting up, and I hear this voice is like, don't do this, man. Don't do this. Get up right now. You cannot be here. Get out of here. And so I bang on the door, and the guard's like, what do you want? He forgot who I was. And I was like, I need to get out of here. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh yeah, you don't live here, huh? I was like, no, I need to go back to where I'm around people. And so he put me back in. Everyone was just looking at me like they don't want to, like, they're like, are you okay? But at the same time, trying to give me space. And so the first thing I did is I went to work out. I did a bunch of burpees, and I'm working out, and everyone's like, dude, this guy is freaking crazy. Like, he just lost his dad, the guy we all see him talk to every single day, and he's over here doing burpees. And the next thing I do is I pick up a book and I start reading. And I'm like, dude, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I can't do this. I can't sit here and cry. And I did. I mean, I did cry, and I did deal with it, and I did talk to people about it. And people were like, I remember people looking at me, they're like, dude, how are you doing this? How are you like getting up? I was like, I don't know, man. I know that I have to. I know that I have to go forward, and I can't go backwards. And I really found my calling in that place. The chaplain of the prison, she needed somebody to help her, and she needed somebody to speak for her, and she needed somebody to. I know how to do computers because I was born in the '80s, so like, we were raised on computers. So she needed somebody who knew how to use computers and manage files, and she didn't speak English very well, so she needed someone to speak for her.
Yeah.
So she was like, hey, will you tell all these guys what I want? Will you tell them this stuff? And I don't speak Spanish, so it was really hard for us to communicate, but I still did. And I was really nervous at first, speaking in front of a bunch of like murderers and whatever else.
Yeah.
But I actually found out that it was something I was good at, and people really resonated with it. And eventually, I shared what happened with my father, and I got a room full of these crazy people crying and wanting to do better, and telling me they're inspired by my story and where I'm at. And I really started finding purpose in all that. And it was crazy. So then after that, like pretty much right after that, I get sent to actual prison, real prison.
Okay.
And prison was my first day there. So like I said, this place is scary. There's no drugs. There's none of this stuff going on. My first day there, I walk into this room, and you see the segregation. The white guys are over here. The black guys.
Oh God.
The black guys are watching ESPN, like they're always by the sports TV. The Mexicans are always over here making food together and doing all this stuff. And people in the back were fighting. I walk in, people are smoking drugs. Like I'm looking around, like, does anyone notice what's going on? Like, and the guards don't care. They're just like, whatever, you know what I mean? As long as they're not stabbing each other.
Yeah.
They're like, it was insane. And I walk up to my room, and there's this big 6'5" dude, and he's my cellie, right?
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's this big Mexican dude. He's got tattoos on his head. He's like, yo, dog, check it out, man. Here are the rules of this place. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Rules? Yeah.
Rules. Like, I already know the rules. They're like, all right, first of all, and I'm being as not graphic as possible. He asked me if I had an effed up charge with the F word, right? Do you have an effed up charge? You have a charge, right? Like, and so I'm thinking about, what's my charge? I burnt down a church. That's pretty messed up, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I got a messed up charge. He's like, oh, dude, you can't stay here. You got a messed up charge. I'm like, what do you mean I can't stay here? I pull out my little thing that shows what room I live in. Like the language is different. The culture is different. I understand what the heck this dude is saying. He's like, you can't stay here, which means we're gonna beat you up till you leave. But to me, I'm like,
oh God.
What do you mean I can't stay here, dude? This is my house right here. And this dude looks at me like, what? He's like, he doesn't understand how I don't understand what he's trying to tell me.
Right.
And, like, he takes down the facade for a second. He's like, dude, what did you do? Like, all the accent and everything goes. And I'm like, oh, I burnt down a church. He's like, bro, that's not messed up. I was like, yeah, it is. he's like messed up means that you like molested a kid or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Oh.
I'm like, oh no. And he's like, yeah, dude. And he's like, come here. Like, he pulled me in the cell. He's like, all right, dude, this is what's about to happen. Those white dudes right down there, they're gonna come in here and they're gonna jump you to see if to see if you're down to fight, and you're gonna be in their gang. And me and you, we could be cool in here, but out there we don't talk. You know what I mean? I'm Mexican, you're white. We don't talk.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, well, that sucks. I'm like, what the heck's going on? He's like, yeah, just get ready for it, man. They're gonna come up here in a second. They're gonna jump you. And the crazy thing is they never showed up. So I'm just sitting there waiting for like days. Wow. Thinking these guys are playing mental games with me. Like, yeah, we're gonna come in here. Well, the dudes at that place, they were so high, they didn't even realize I was there. I don't know. Like they didn't even see it. You know what I mean?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was just crazy. Like my whole prison experience, like I
Sounds
felt
it.
like I was just like protected by God. Like nothing
Wow.
ever happened to me. No,
That's
nobody ever
good. Yeah.
confronted me. Not that I like, nobody wants, like, here's the thing that people will say about prison. Like, they'll be like, oh, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. Dude, I was scared. That was scary, bro. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're in a room full of crazy people, man. And they're beating each other
Exactly.
up and fighting and they got knives and like doing
Oh
crazy stuff.
God. Well,
It's a,
exactly. And it's just like, again, you see it all over the movies, don't you? The soap incidents in
yeah,
the
yeah. Oh, yeah.
showers.
Yeah.
Were you
Yeah.
scared?
Well, that doesn't happen like that, but pretty much everything else does. Now, like, it's, I won't get into that.
Okay, no, it's fine. Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. It's more like a willing, people
Wow.
do it, consensual, I guess. But
Oh, yeah. Okay, no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When you're locked up for so many years, yeah, it's understandable. It's
yeah,
understandable.
it's weird. I mean, I didn't get into that, but it's a
Mm,
strange culture, strange world. But I made up in my mind, like, basically, before I went there, I was like, man, I'm not going to play by their rules. I'm not going to play their game. I don't care what happens. I'm not going to segregate myself. I remember I had some black friends in the transfer facility, and they're like, oh, this is your last meal with black guys, because when you go to prison, you can't eat with blacks anymore.
oh,
I was like, yeah, right, dude. And so I actually almost got into a lot of trouble on Thanksgiving. I ate with all the blacks. I didn't mean to. Just one of my friends was black. He's like, hey, can I invite my friends? And I didn't. And on the holidays, all the races just throw a big meal. And so the white
yeah.
guys were like, they were like, hey, are you gonna come with us? And I was like, no, I'm good. And so I
Right.
didn't know that I dissed them. Like I dissed them. I was like, no, I'm good. And then they see me eating with the blacks over here, and
Right.
they're like, we're gonna kill this dude, right?
Yeah.
They never ended up killing me. I mean, I'm still here.
Oh, amazing. So what would you say was your kind of most tragic experience in prison?
Well, besides the loss of my father, I would say, you know, I honestly, the crazy thing is that was it. Like,
Okay.
I found life there.
Mm.
Me and these men, after I actually got to prison, I met a lot of good dudes, and there are people who wanted to actually do good with their lives. Like, the crazy thing about prisoners is they're probably more capable than most people. And people who are more capable than most people, they run the hardest and they do the worst things. Like, a lot
Oh,
of these dudes
okay.
are like, it's
Mm.
just kind of like a theory I have, but a lot of these dudes, they're amazing artists or amazing writers,
Wow.
or like people would like learn a whole book and like recite this
Yeah.
whole book to you. And like, I remember seeing, I was like, dude, why is this guy here? What is he like? This guy is so
Mm.
like,
Genius.
he's a genius. He's talented. And I really feel like a lot of dudes in there were geniuses, but because they had such a high calling in their head, it was
Yeah.
like, it was easier to run from being a genius, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the dudes I talk to now who I was locked up with, like, they're doing great. They're doing amazing things. And people keep,
Wow.
since I've been out, people are handing me keys, handing me debit cards, handing me trucks. Like, they don't know me, but they're like, they trust me more than anyone else. Like, it's weird.
Oh, that's amazing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's really surreal. But
It is. And like, I don't know, something keeps coming into me about forgiveness. So were you able to forgive yourself and were you forgived,
yeah,
about, yeah.
for a long time, I was angry with myself for what I did, and I was really ashamed of it, because it's a really shameful thing. I made up a story of why I actually did it until later. I just came to terms, like, it was stupid.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Mm,
But I was really like, I shamed my whole family. Like my family, they all grow up kind of Christian, and like, for me to do that, like, it was pretty terrible. And
okay.
my dad even told me when I first got locked up, he was like, dude, you realize what this makes us look like, but we're here for you. But like, you
Yeah.
really made us look bad,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
he told me straight up. And one of the things that I didn't share was I didn't talk to my mother for about 10 years, before I got locked up, like from 15 to 25. And after I
Okay.
lost my father, I was like, I need to forgive my mother. And
Right.
that, I think that was maybe one of the biggest roots of my problems, was
Was it?
unforgiveness. Like, when you
Okay.
have unforgiveness in your heart, it reaches out to everything else in your life,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
physically, mentally. And it it was super hard. I wrote her a letter. I cried my eyes out,
Yeah.
and then I talked to her, and she ended up being one of my biggest support systems. She would send me books, she would send
Yeah.
me money, she would send me this. And I had all these family who started reaching out to me. They were like, Dane, we don't want you to go down this other path. So whatever you need, we can help you, you know? And so I had plenty of, like, one of the things that gets people in prison in trouble a lot is they feed you like crap. And like, I mean, they feed you a lot, but it doesn't taste good. It's terrible, you know? So your family can send you money and you can basically go buy stuff from the store. Well,
Right.
people who can't buy stuff do like a hustle. They'll move drugs. They'll,
Okay.
you know, they'll beat somebody up, or they'll do this for a hustle. And
Yeah.
because I had stuff, because my family was looking out for me, I never had to hustle, you know? Like I had stuff.
That's
and
good.
so that was really nice, and that really did help a lot. So anybody who has anybody locked up, like, support them as long as they're doing good things, because you could still, they're like, if you ever buy drugs with this, if we ever find out you're doing something like that, you're gonna, you know.
Right. Okay.
But
that's awesome. Yeah. And you're obviously going to be moving closer to your family as well.
Yeah, soon? I'm actually I just spent a year. I've been out for a year. It was such a crazy time to get out. Yeah. I get out with the pandemic and with all the political stuff going on in America, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I came out into the apocalypse. But
wow.
I decided I wasn't gonna live with my brother at first, but I decided that, you know, I've been in the Army for 6 years. I've been in prison for about 6 years, and I decided that I needed to try to see if I could do it on my own. You know, like, it was like, I felt like if I had somebody else right there for me, I couldn't prove that I had changed, that I'd become a different person. I've been out for a year. I haven't been in any trouble. I've had great jobs. You know, I've had a couple instances where I was like, all right, you need to chill out. Like, but for the most part, like, that's just me being hard on myself. Really, I've done great.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, congratulations. And so, I mean, you've been out a year. That's fantastic. And look where you are today.
Yeah, it's crazy. Another thing too, like, when I was locked up, I was getting set off. They see me for parole every year, right?
Yeah.
Because I had 10 years. I didn't really know about parole, but I started getting set off every year. And I noticed when finally I changed my mentality about it. Like, I used to pray and be like, God, please let me out, I'll do anything, blah, blah, blah. Every year I would get set down. And that was traumatic, like, emotionally, because I could get out early and then I don't get out. I could get out early and then I don't get out. On year 5, I was talking to God, and I was like, you know what, no matter what happens, I know that you know better than I know. And I get set off again to stay again. And I said, you know what, thank you, God. I know the man you're going to produce in this next year. I'm going to push harder this year. I'm going to read more books. I'm going to do better. I'm going to speak more. I'm going to be part of these events. I'm going to help more men out. And I finally get out, you know.
That's your karma.
Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the things that probably won't right now, because I've already probably extended myself emotionally with crying and stuff, but I got men who get out now, and they tell me that they are where they are right now in their life. Like, one of my friends, he sees his daughter every day, he sees his family every day. He didn't have a good relationship. He was probably going to get back out and use meth. And he told me, he's like, dude, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And it's like, that feels so good to hear. Like, I tell him, I was like, dude, you did it. Like, I just talked to you and spoke to you and
supported him.
Supported you. But like, the crazy thing is, people understand, like, it really doesn't take that much to help somebody. Like, somebody hearing this might help somebody. Or you just go up and give somebody some encouragement. Like, it takes just so little.
Wow, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, because one of my talks with a lovely guest that I had was on the fact that it just takes one person to believe in you.
Yeah, and it's not even that much. Like,
exactly.
Hey, you're doing a good job. You know,
you're doing great. You're going to do great. You know, just have faith in yourself, and that's it, right? Sometimes that's all we need. It is amazing. Yeah, support is everything. And I just wanted to ask as well, do you regret what you did?
Well, that's kind of a tough question, but I think that I don't. And this is the only way that I would become the man that I am today. So if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I used to tell people when I was given like talks at the churches and stuff, when I was in prison, I'd be like, you know what a worse sentence would be? Is if I never got locked up and I continued on the road I was going. Like, if I never got in trouble and I was just this miserable person that I was, that made excuses, that didn't take responsibility, that blamed everybody else, that continued to be a victim of myself, you know. And that would be a way worse prison sentence than having to do 6 years and becoming a man, you know, like
Yeah.
for me, I'm a stubborn rebel and this was the only way, you know,
Wow.
this
That
is the
is,
only way.
yeah, that is powerful. That is,
I
wow.
remember I saw the Avengers. There was a part where Doctor Strange was like, "This is the only way." He points up at the sky, and like movies. If you pay attention, movies can do something to you. I remember seeing him tell Tony Stark when he did what he did. This is the only way, and that touched me so much just from a silly movie. And I remember I was
Yeah.
like, "This is the only way. This is the only way." I always think about that.
No way. That is, and so how about this church? I mean, did they renovate it or anything?
No, unfortunately, my mother, when me and her built a relationship, she came and visited me, and then she
Mm.
went and talked to them, and she told them how I was doing, that I was doing better, that I was being a better person. They forgave me, and that was really cool, and that was nice.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing.
they pretty much told her, they're like, you know what, things weren't going very well, and
No.
um, they basically like
You
it sounded
basically,
they
you
basically
did.
got they got insurance money for it, and
Yeah, I was
like,
gonna say you basically did them a favor. So
yeah.
everyone wins.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, don't do that in hopes that it'll work out great like that.
No, yeah, yeah. Please don't do that, listeners.
Yeah, that's what they said on the
Disclaimer.
podcast. Well, but yeah, like it worked out, and I
Brilliant.
had this when I got out. I came back to where I was at because that's kind of how prison works. Like I had to do parole in Texas at first, and
Mm,
I have 4 more years or 3 more years on parole, and it's really not that bad. But I went
yeah.
out and I was like, man, I'm gonna have this amazing moment. I'm gonna go to this church. I'm gonna like cry in this field and be like, yeah. I went there. It was like something built over it, and I was like,
Yeah.
man,
Oh
it's
man.
been a good
Yeah.
moment. You know? But
But no, and I think, yeah, I mean, when you were talking about parole, yeah, I've heard about parole. It could be dead, it just really messes with your mind because you're there thinking, oh, if I get out, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then if you're disappointed because you got another year to do, then it can really,
yeah,
be hard on
people,
you. Yeah.
a lot of dudes that day really do something terrible. They'll like fight
Yeah.
somebody or
Oh,
really bad.
right. Okay.
The thing
That's
is,
interesting.
the thing that I knew, I was like, man, I'm gonna be the most behaved because as long as I don't have any marks against me, then I have more of a chance to get out. You know,
Yeah.
one of the sad things that really changed me too was I would see like there's a lot of old people in prison, like 60, 70, 80 years old. There's men on walkers, like they talk about prison in their whole life, and they talk about like, oh, I was in jail in the 80s, I was in jail in the 70s, and I'm like, dude,
Oh,
I used to look at
man.
them like, man, that could be me, bro. Like I could be that
Exactly.
person. I don't want to be the guy who's bragging about all the times I was in prison, you know?
I
Like
know.
I created a vision for myself and that really helped. And one of my visions is I want to be a good father. I want to have children. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good man. I want to help others. And that's one of the things I was going to say is like having a vision is like is
Okay.
is amazing. And when I was laying on that prison cell and I had a vision of the man I could be, like I'm that man now, and now I have a vision of the next man I could be.
Yeah.
It does something for you to have something to look towards. You know,
Yeah. I was going to say, and like, what do you think is it now that gets you out of bed every morning?
what gets me out of bed every morning? I'm not tired anymore. Just
That's
kidding.
good.
No, I would say another influential book I read was Maps of Meaning. It was by Jordan Peterson, and I don't know what you guys think about him in the UK or anything, but this dude, I didn't never heard any of his talks, never heard any of his YouTube
Mm,
videos. My brother sent me this super big book. It was like a psychology major book, and it was terrible and it was so hard to read. It wasn't his new readable books,
wow.
and
Okay.
I read this book and he talked about like putting meaning into your life and going on this hero's journey.
Mm,
And that was the same thing that Viktor Frankl talked about, and
yeah.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn from the Gulag Archipelago was like having meaning and a purpose. And my meaning and purpose right now is to essentially share my story and hope that a younger man, a younger woman, even if they have nothing in common, any parallels with what I said,
Mm,
that they can help themselves out. And that's been one of the most rewarding things for me is I do my own podcast, and basically I get messages sometimes and people are like, dang man, you really helped me out. And I always thought like if I could just help one person out, I've helped more than one out now, but my life would be worth it. And
mm,
that is like the most the crazy thing is, the most rewarding thing is when you do a selfless act, when you help another person.
Yeah.
When you open up and be authentic, like it does something to people that there's nothing compared to it, you know.
So true. And I guess for people like us, where it just comes quite naturally, we don't even realize the impact this can have on somebody.
Yeah.
Just to be so authentic and so vulnerable and just out there, you know, with our stories, and you know what you've shared today. Wow, that's huge. You know, you've really gone deep, and I really appreciate your authenticity all the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah,
I really appreciate this, and I really think that you're doing an amazing thing yourself. And just
you.
know that you've already helped me. I've heard one of your shows, and I hope that you get blessed and this continues to grow for you. You know.
You know, same with you. And I was going to ask if my listeners want to contact you and find you, please give some details as to how they can do so.
Well, I'm not as creative as you. It's called Dane Gordon Podcast. Dane Gordon Podcast, not Victim to Victor, but that's it. I'm on Spotify and Apple, and it's a pretty young thing, and it's something starting out. But like I said, it gives me purpose and meaning. And another thing that helps me get out of bed every morning is that dream of being a father and finding a good woman and doing, like, living that life, you know. When we're younger, a lot of us, we want to go party and we want to go do this, and we want all this stuff, and we realize we're chasing after nothing when we get older. Like, now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, what was I doing? You know what I mean? Like, all this, like, sure. I used to think, like, oh, those dudes are losers, like the guys with the kids and the wife. And I'm like, oh, they don't know how to live. And now I'm like, man, that looks so awesome. You know, that looks amazing. Please give me that life, God. You know.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Yeah, and that's your vision. Yeah. And you know, it will come.
It will. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, you're on the right track, and I just think you've come such a long way in such a short amount of time as well.
Yeah, it's only been like 7 years since, you know, I burnt that church down. So
wow. That's not what you hear in everyday conversation, is it?
Oh, I wish I had the picture. There's
God.
Let me show you real quick. It's not a picture of that, but this was I don't know if you could see it on. This was me in prison.
That wasn't you.
That was me like 5 years ago.
Oh wow, you do actually got a bit of a Mexican look.
Yeah, well, my beard naturally just grows out right here.
Oh, that's probably why. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, my podcast listeners wouldn't have been able to see that, but my YouTubers will. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I forgot. There's YouTube and podcast. If you didn't see it, I'm a bald, grizzled look. It looks like basically a criminal. Like
he basically does, right? Yeah. I wouldn't trust him.
Just imagine a bad guy in a movie, you know. And now, would you say I look like Keanu Reeves or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what it is? I feel like all of your baggage has been released, and you know, you now live abundantly, and I just feel like the universe is with you, and you know, it's gonna show in your skin and you know the way that you glow. So absolutely.
I'll tell you this though too, like, you know, it's still hard. It's still not easy. It's not easy. But just everyday life is sometimes difficult. Sometimes I feel like depressed. Sometimes I feel that. But because of what I've been through, like whenever like I'll get a flat tire or something, I'm like, man, dude, this sucks. But I like start just thinking all this bad stuff, and I'm like, wait, I'm not in prison. What? Who cares? I can have a flat tire. I'm not in a jail.
You're free. Go get it fixed.
And I know that everyone hasn't experienced that, but I know that you personally, you were at a really bad place before, and you could be like, man, I'm not there anymore. Like life is fine. This ain't nothing. Absolutely. The things I've been through are so much bigger than this. You know?
Exactly. Well, yeah, and you know, we were victims, but now we're victors.
Yeah, absolutely. Full circle.
Absolutely. Well, so thank you so much again. You know, that is the ending of the show, and it's been an absolute honor to have you on, Dane. And I look forward to seeing where you go from now on.
Absolutely.
And obviously I will add Dane's podcast link in my description on YouTube as well as a podcast, so you can go and hit subscribe onto his channel as well, and go and check out some of his shows and episodes.
Give Victim to Victor 5 stars.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we do hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and As Dane said, please do rate it, review it, and get in contact if you have any questions about this episode or anything else. You know, if you just need any support, then please do contact myself or Dane. We're here for you, everyone, and we love you. Thank you. Okay, so see you on the next show, listeners and watchers.